Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm going to give a minute for people to get their audio connected so everybody can hear me. I am Anna Brown from Katy Budget Books. I am so excited to be hosting this conversation tonight. I love Jessica's book. I just want to start with that. And then I am going to introduce our speakers and then let them take over. So Jessica Zweig is the CEO and founder of the Simply Be Agency, a personal branding company that helps millions of people worldwide. She's been named one of 2020's most notable entrepreneurs by Crain's, a personal branding expert by Forbes, a top digital marketer to watch by Inc., and the 2018 recipient of the International Gold Stevie Award for Female Entrepreneur of the Year. She's been featured on Fox, ABC, NBC, Thrive Global, Business Insider, and more as an expert on how an authentic personal brand is the key to a more successful career. And you can learn more at her website. And Dom Roberts, who's going to be in conversation with her, is a creative activist and host of the Uncomfortable podcast. At 22 years old, Dom left her full-time job at Nordstrom to dive into activism and is inspiring people around the globe to take action around causes they believe in by providing tangible advice and tools to start participating as activists. So I am so thrilled for you guys to get to be in conversation with them this evening.
Hello, everybody. What's up, Kadara? Love seeing you here, my friend. So Megs, you want to maybe spotlight Dom and I? We're gonna have a little chatty chat. Thank you to Katy Budget Books for having us, and for really being such a huge supporter of the book tour. Bookstores, independent bookstores are the future and our history, and I just feel like very grateful to support an independent bookshop in this now time. So Dom, what's up, sister?
Hi.
I'm so happy to be with you.
So happy to talk with you today. It's going to be great.
Yeah. In thinking about my guests for this tour, that was really intended to just be like really intimate, really authentic conversations around my new book Be. I came across you through our mutual friend Scout Sobel, and I was like, full body yes, because when it comes to authenticity, that's what my whole platform's about, right? And it's also such an overused word, and we don't really know what it is anymore, what it isn't. And at the same time, like when it's really there, it cuts through, and you are living that through and through.
Thank you so much. That means so much. Thank you.
You really, really are. And so one of the things I actually wanted to kick off with from the book is, a piece of our conversation, a jumping off point for our conversation, which I think will be really a great segue into getting to know you and opening up this authentic heart to heart that I know we're going to have tonight. So I wrote this chapter 4, and it's called "So What Is Personal Branding?" ... And I have all of these myths and all of these truths, and I kind of rewrite the myths with truth. And this is one part that I really want to highlight because I think it defines you. Okay. And the myth is authenticity is overused. And the truth is, this is my favorite myth, and I understand why it exists. With the advent of the influencer, the rise of the Insta story, and the behind the scenes content we have become so used to consuming, it's hard to tell the difference between what authenticity really is and what it's pretending to be. Authenticity is unfiltered. It's unapologetic. It's honest. It doesn't have the perfect lighting or the right hashtag mix. Authenticity doesn't have all the answers. Authenticity owns its imperfections. Authenticity takes responsibility when it makes mistakes. Authenticity shows up for its audience on the good days and the bad days. And I have just seen you show up so authentically for your community, for the world, so powerfully. And so if we can talk about what that experience has been like for you, because damn girl, you have blown up. You're on fucking fire. and for good reason. And I just want to know, what's this last year been like for you? And how do you maintain your authenticity?
Wow. Thank you so much for having me. And it's so interesting because I think what's most interesting about my platform kind of blowing up literally overnight is the fact that I didn't plan for it to happen. So it really did come from an authentic heart. And it was just to like raise awareness about what was happening in our world at the time. And I don't know, it was so interesting. It's like there's no roadmap, there's no guidebook to going viral, I guess.
Yeah.
And then having to have this newfound ability of like social responsibility and people looking to you. And at the time, I don't know, 2020, I had moments of like highs and lows, and the lows were really intense because I felt like I was doing a bad job. But once again, like social media is really tricky. And so I went through every emotion humanly possible. And I think now being in 2021 and soon in like April, I'll be close to the anniversary of when I first started posting and sharing and working in like the creative activist space. It's so crazy how much I've implemented the importance on like mental health, taking care of yourself, having systems, having all these things that I didn't have in the past. But yeah, it's crazy.
I mean,
to say the least.
yeah, I see it. I saw it. So take us back. So what made you go viral specifically? Was there a piece of content? Was there something you shared?
Yeah. So what's so interesting is, so I just a little backtrack. I went to college. I was going to school in LA, and it was also mixed with an internship. And I was a social media intern. And they were like, quote graphics do really well for us. Like quote graphics make our engagement go crazy. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So for them, like when I was interning under them, I would just like make a ton of quote graphics. So when George Floyd, his like murder took place, and I knew so many people were gonna look away. I knew so many people like just didn't want to hear it. So I put a quote graphic first, and that quote graphic went viral and like got shared like millions and millions and millions of times.
What did it say?
It said, don't ignore something because it makes you uncomfortable.
Wow.
And that phrase I just felt would like spoke to what was happening at the time. Like so many people are going to ignore this because it makes them feel uncomfortable, or the uncomfortable conversations that are going to have to happen for change to take place and all this stuff. So that was where it started, and the rest has been history.
So talk to us about that history. So you went viral, and that post really took off. That one post put you on the map in a way. And then what? I mean, did you feel an obligation? Like, how are you fielding all of this newfound awareness? What was that like for you?
Yeah, so that was the tricky part. Was I didn't know I felt the obligation. I felt the social obligation, the social pressure to keep posting. And there was so much to be said. Like this was the first time I felt like the whole world was looking in and actually paying attention to what I was saying. So I was like, I'm going to capitalize on this. So I was like, because my my DMs were like flooded. So people were like, can you help me? What do I do in this situation? How do if I'm making a phone call, like what do I say when I'm on the phone? So there was just like a lot of content to be produced and conversations to be had. So I just like kept going. And then I think that just kind of led to burnout, because I also had no sense of boundary with like me doing this from home, and that was like my personal social media. And so I would just like post, and it'd be like 4 a.m. and I like hadn't slept. And then I'd like wake up at 10 and be like, oh my gosh, I have like now 100 new messages and like people who want to do interviews and podcasts. So it was just like madness. And I had no sense of like, what do I do? But all I knew was that like I had to keep doing it, if that makes sense.
It does. it actually is amazing, and it does. And how have you, since that time, I mean, obviously maybe the concentration of messages has slowed down, but the demand and the need for this conversation has not. And
Yeah.
how have you maintained boundaries, or how are you navigating, your day-to-day? Because you really established yourself, whether you meant to or not, as a thought leader, as a voice, as a go-to, and people are still going to. I mean, I see what you're putting out there, girl. I see your engagement. I listen to your podcast. I mean, you are a voice, and people are listening to you. So how are you taking care of yourself now?
I think that one of the things that I realized was like an early on conversation that I had with one of my mentors that I met at school. And this is really random, but this one conversation led into like a mindset of endgame. And at the time, a lot of people were looking to donate. Like people were just like, where can I donate? Can I donate to you? You're doing all of this for free. Can I donate? Can I donate to you? And I talked to them and I was like, well, what do I say? Like, I don't know what to say. Cause like at the same time, I'm not working right now. And like, this would be cool if this like turns into a long-term thing. And my mentor said, take nothing and like build everything yourself, like become established, essentially, was the advice that he gave me. So he was like, don't take anyone's money. Like he was like, we're going to get you established. Like we're going to help you become established. And that random conversation that I had with him was actually, what's so crazy now is like, everything that I've done, I had the conversation of what is end game? Like I'm in this for the long haul. And that was really special. And I think anyone who's struggling of like newfound fame or like goes viral, like you have to kind of sit there and have the conversation like, okay, if I can do it once, like I can do it again. So what do I want this picture to look like? And I was like, okay, I think I'm gonna like keep having conversations, like start brands, like collabs, like all this stuff. But I think early on, the easiest thing for me to do would have been like, okay, yeah, sure. Like I actually would love some Venmos and a GoFundMe and like all this stuff. But instead I was just like, no, like I'm in it for the long haul. Like, how can like you guys who want to like help me financially, like exert that energy into like helping me become established, if that makes sense.
It does. It's amazing. Wow. Where do you see yourself in like 5 years from now?
Man, honestly, I think I do want to like keep giving back, like keep building these conversations, of course. But I think on just a larger scale, like reaching more people. Yeah, and I guess expanding this to like an everyday thing, like branding, all of that to, yeah, and just like for profits and giving back and things like that. Like that's so important to me. And right now, I just launched a collection with Mayfair, and like all of that money got donated to like 2 incredible organizations and just like stuff like that. Like authentic. I just want to build something authentic that gives back to real people and not like, okay, I don't know where money's going and all this stuff. Like, no, like this is giving back to real people and like helping spread awareness and things like that.
Beautiful. I love it. So mission minded and service oriented, and everything that I talk about in my book, whether you build an activist platform or not, you have to make it about who you can help and not just you. And you, girl, damn, you are a walking, breathing example of that. So kudos and thank you for your work. I wanted to ask you, your podcast,
Yes.
Uncomfortable, you have a gift, if I may be so bold and say, you have a gift in taking uncomfortable conversations and providing a portal into them. And, when it comes to, sure, the topic of race specifically,
Yeah.
conversations in general that are uncomfortable, like you really have sort of mastered narrating through them, and that's why people come to you. So what advice do you have for anyone, that isn't Dom, that you know, is up against uncomfortable conversations? How do we do it?
I think the best way is like starting with yourself and understanding that. I think one of the things also, like a lesson I had to learn this past year with everything, is just like, I'm not God. Like, I'm not the person who's gonna, I can be a part, like, we're all a part of a puzzle. Like, the world is one big puzzle and we're all just one piece of it. And, you know, some pieces may be like, may feel bigger than others, but nonetheless, like, we're still a piece of the puzzle. And I think recognizing that and recognizing it starts with me, but at the same time, like, those conversations don't end with me. Like, there's others involved, there's other people we can lean on, there's community, and resources available to us. And I think starting there and leveling it back and making it not as daunting is a great way to start. And then going from like, okay, so what is the goal of this conversation too? I think a lot of people go into conversations with no goal. Like, do you want them to agree with you? Do you want to voice how they hurt your feelings? These are like the basic things that we don't think about going into hard topic conversations. And it's not even the conversation of race, but really anything. Yeah. And I think understanding like, okay, if your main priority is having them hear you, then like, what do you need to say to make you feel heard? And understand like the boundary of everything is in your control, but you can't control how like people react to you, like what other people's reaction is going to be, if they're ready to hear what you're saying. And yeah, I think like those are really important things, because I think when we go into hard conversations, a lot of times we're just like, I want to hurt that person. And maybe we're not thinking that, like, I'm saying this to hurt this person, but our heart is in a space that's like, I'm trying to hurt this person, or I want them to feel the amount of pain that like I'm feeling, and all these different things. And that can be communicated in an incorrect way, I guess.
That's beautiful advice. Like, very fundamental advice, but it's sometimes and often forgotten, especially in these times when everything can be so heightened and heated, and just to really come back to the goal, like the objective. And that's why we're talking to each other, because we want to be heard, we want to accomplish something, and we have to tune into that. And I think that's really beautiful. I've never thought about it that way. Question for you. You just did a podcast on cancel culture versus accountability culture.
Yes.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
What's accountability culture? Can you break it down for us?
Yeah. So I think everyone's well-versed with cancel culture. Yes. And cancel culture to me was something that I was seeing a lot of, because rightfully so, there was a lot of righteous anger towards what was happening in the world. Like, there were people dying, there were people being overlooked, there was like abuse taking place 24/7. Like, 2020 is like a prime example of like people groups being overlooked and that coming to the surface. So I was seeing like old stuff like coming up from like people from like 2012, 2010. And I was just like, okay, how do we further the conversation from I'm angry and I hate this person to this being something that's productive and like allows the other person to grow, but the audience to also feel like they were held accountable for their actions, which is where I like shifted the term like cancel culture into accountability culture, which is so important to me. And it is honestly one of the hills that I'll always die on. And accountability culture to me is everyone makes mistakes. And I truly don't believe like a mistake, something you said, or something, you know, like it was said in the moment, should define a person for the rest of their life. And I know that's an unpopular opinion, and that goes against culture that we know. But I truly believe that with all my heart, because I think of like high school Dom way back when, and she for sure said some things that would be horrible or offensive, or someone would look back to and be like, why does this girl have a platform? You know what I'm saying? I'm just like being real. And I was thinking the same thing happened with these 18-year-old kids who are just ignorant and saying these things and all this stuff. And so I was like, okay, accountability culture is owning your mistakes. It's saying, I fucked up. I did something that was wrong. I spoke out of turn. I did something I was not supposed to do. And I'm admitting all of it. I'm not deflecting. I'm not placing blame on anyone else, which is what we see, which is why we run into the problem of cancel culture. But I'm owning my shit. And I'm also understanding that I need to take a step back and learn and listen before I can lead again. And so it's a two-way street. It's understanding like the audience needs to know, okay, we're deciding to hold this person accountable, but understanding that in hopes that one day they would return and like be in a place where they can lead and grow and facilitate important conversations. And it's also on the other person to decide, I'm not going to deflect, but I'm going to reflect on what I said. I'm going to own my shit and understand that I need to now regain the trust of the people that I hurt, the people that, don't trust me anymore and stuff like that. So I think understanding accountability culture as way more productive than a lot of what we're seeing of cancel culture. And it helps kind of both parties,
Yeah, I'd say I love this, Dom. I mean, I think accountability culture is where it needs to go. And I've been canceled, and not in a huge public space like a lot of people have been. And but in my own kind of private micro moments, and it hurts to be canceled because with the exception of like few people who are truly bad, ignorant, like racist people who don't want to, change. I think most people are inherently just trying to do their best.
Yeah.
And when it comes to being canceled or making mistakes, as not the canceler, but the cancelee, how do you, I mean, you kind of just said it, but I'd like to go deeper. Like, how do you show up again? How do you build the bridge back? How do you reclaim your credibility or respect or whatever? And I'm not entirely talking about myself, just generally speaking.
So I think, there's so many different layers because it's really complex and every situation's its own. But I think first understanding that like you were wrong, like we were wrong, like I was wrong in that moment, like I was the one who made the mistake. So understanding that like there will be some people who will only see me for my mistakes, and that's just hurt people who are going to hurt people. And also forgiveness has no timeline, which is unfortunate because we would hope that one day everyone would forgive us, but that's just not the case. It's understanding that like there really is no timeline for forgiveness. Like they might forgive us 10 years from now. We never know how long it's going to take. So it's like, what do we do in that middle ground, in that waiting period of regaining back trust? And I think it starts with owning it. Like the beautiful thing about owning your shit, owning whatever mistake you made, is no one can hold you to it. It's like as if the world didn't know that was the thing I did. As if I don't already live with what I did every single day. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I think starting there and understanding, okay, yep, that was me. That was me. It's where people fall into hot water where they prolong the conversation. I wasn't aware of what I did. I had no clue. Well, so many people around me were doing it. And you're just like, okay, I've yet to hear, I'm sorry because I participated in this,
Right.
So scaling back to like, I'm the problem. I was the one who messed up in the situation. And then understanding I don't want to be that anymore. So how do I not become that? And so it's just like, well, who do I need to listen to? Who are leaders like in my life? Who are leaders in the spaces around me that I can go to and like look to them and like follow them and like follow their lead. And, you know, it also comes with time. So it's also understanding, okay, I'm going to have to wait a little. I'm going to have to learn. I'm going to have to unlearn. And in that process of unlearning, relearning, ownership, the only people are going to see the fruit of that. People are going to see this person has changed.
Right.
And
right.
it'll take one conversation, one moment for someone to recognize, wait, I think they've changed. We see it all the time with celebrities, like someone who goes to rehab, someone who starts going to therapy, someone who just gets rehabilitated into a new person. Like, you notice it. And the unpopular thing is we believe like people don't change. And I am so anti that. I'm just really, really anti people don't change, because we've all been low. We've all fucked up. Everyone has. And I think, you know, going through those emotions and realizing change like starts with me is the baseline, like the foundation for like doing something incredible. You know what I'm saying? And honestly, not only regaining the trust of the people that like you broke their trust, but gaining more people who want to look into your life, because it's like, wow, they did it. Like, I've been there once. I want, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah, it's a beautiful perspective, Dom. It really is, and one that I think we need, and filled with honesty and accountability, but grace. And people are human, and we all go through seasons of evolution. And I love, as you were talking, it's so funny. My husband's a golfer, so I'm always like, there's always golf on in my house. So like Tiger Woods is like a very big name in my household, and he just got into a horrible accident today. I don't know if you saw that, made the news. Yeah, but it's so sad. And he was my husband was watching a documentary on Tiger Woods like a couple weeks ago, and I watched it with him, and it really took in the viewer inside of like his adultery and just how he was really kind of like massacred, like publicly enslaved, right? And then he went off grid, rehabilitated, to use your word, the retribution, like the apology. And he was, I think, to be frank, in the golf world, particularly, like really unfairly treated. And I think a lot of that had to do with, it felt there was a lot of racist undertones actually when they were spotlighting his extramarital affairs. But nonetheless, it's just so top of mind because he was in this accident today. And my husband screenshotted me this photo of him from like a broadcast sports thing he did a couple of days ago. And he just looked so dark and like big bags under his eyes. And I'm just like, here's this superstar who's had all this success and is so human at the same time. And we forget that we're all human, is my point.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And like, no one does not get to feel a piece of life. Everyone gets handed some card in their deck that like throws them under, like throws them in for a spin. And that's the thing, is understanding human nature. Like, we're so imperfect, and understanding people are going to disappoint you. Don't put your heroes on pedestals. Like, they will fall, but understanding they're human too. And I think living in that boundary, living in that understanding, there's so much more freedom. There's so much more love to give. There's so much more that you can dish out, and like helpful and all these different things, if you're willing to think in that perspective. But the hard thing with that perspective, it's so anti-culture, it's so anti everything else that's in our face,
Yes, you are special. I like adore you. You're just no, it's true. And I remember when we first connected like a couple weeks ago preparing for this, I was having actually a really hard day, and I barely even knew you, and I was really hurt by a friend of mine, and I just was like, hey, can I just tell you what's happening for me right now? And you were just like such a beautiful listening sounding board, and I can just see and understand very clearly why you have grown the way you've grown, and that you really have, blown up, to use, for lack of a better word, at this now time, because you really possess something very needed right now. And to that end, I just want to read one last thing, and then I want to open it up for questions, because this sums you up to a T. Every chapter of my book, for those of you that have it, which you all do, ends with a B tip, and it just sort of summarizes the chapter. And for Dom, I picked be authentic. So like, it's like the whole heart of the book, girl. And like, that's so what you're about. Authenticity is rebellion, and the world needs someone to lead the revolution. It's up to leaders, experts, authorities, change agents, and game changers to come together to lead with love, light, and service. It starts with you simply being you. That is you, Dom, to a T. Music.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you are the facilitator of all of this. You are the mastermind and the genius. So I'm following behind you, because thank you. You're so inspiring to listen to and everything. So thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this journey and this conversation.
Girl, we're on the rocket ship together. We're doing it together, trailblazing. I really mean that. I just can't wait to see where you go. And I'm so happy we're friends.
Me too. Thank you.
So I want to open it up to the audience. We have a nice intimate group tonight. So let's get real. Megan Taylor has a question.
Hi. Yeah, I do. Hi, Dom. Thank you so much. This has been amazing to get to know you at this level. And I have many questions, but the question I'm going to ask tonight is, where do you look for inspiration? Because I think for me, I found it in places I haven't expected, in people and things I'm reading or watching. I just was saying that we were at an event with these young girls that were giving inspiration. So what is inspiring you lately? And where do you look for being nourished?
Honestly, I think this is going to sound so simple and so cheesy, but if you take it deeper than just I guess what it is, but just take it deeper and trek with me. But in moments, there's so many moments that pass us by, and we are too busy, too focused in ourselves, too focused in the world around us to see these beautiful moments take place. For example, I had a lady, her name's Lisa, and she worked at an Italian restaurant, and I was just whatever. She was the best. I had so much fun with her. I just talked to her. I was like, Lisa, I'm obsessed with you. Tell me more about you. And by the end of the night, we're friends on Facebook now, you guys. And by the end of the night, she posts this really long thing of how hard it's been for her in the service industry and all this stuff, and how our interaction that night made her experience being in unprecedented times in the service industry that much more special. And I was like, that right there is a moment that inspires me and influences me to be how can I service people in that way? Or sometimes I'll be watching Beyonce on screen, and she'll have a moment or talk about something in her life, and I'm like, it's just things that we miss, or people that we miss, or moments that we miss, where so much inspiration can be drawn from. And honestly, right now I'm focusing on moments, people, things, especially since we're all far away and it's COVID right now. I'm dying. I'm any human connection, please.
That's phenomenal. I'm so inspired by that. You're so right. It's sort of such a fucking trip and wild gift to be human, and to be and to connect with other people, and in those moments, wow, that was powerful. Thank you for that. Great question, Megs. We have questions from Kadara, Brian, Alexa. So Kadara, hello, Kadara.
What's going on?
What's your question?
So I would say a couple years back, I realized that there was an uncomfortable conversation I had to have with my mom that sparked it and made it easier for me. So what would you say is that uncomfortable conversation you had to have that ignited the flame, where it made it easier to have those conversations with anybody?
Well, so when everything in the heat of everything and like the resurgence of like Black Lives Matter and stuff, my bestest friend in the whole entire world is my friend Madison, and she's from Arizona, and her whole family has taken me in. Like they love me like I'm their own daughter. And Chris, her dad, he he is the best guy in the whole entire world, but just couldn't wrap his mind around what was happening, couldn't wrap his mind around like injustice, these different themes that were being thrown around, like Black Lives Matter, what does that mean? White privilege, all these different things, right? And he was saying some things that I was like, wait, that is a form of racism. Like these are themes that are this is part of the problem, essentially. And it was like a 2-hour long conversation where I was so scared to speak up. And it was really uncomfortable because these are people who have paid for me to like go on trips with them, like just have made like their family to me. But I had to let them know, like I couldn't lose my integrity for the sake of their comfort. And so it was an uncomfortable position for both of us, but working through that discomfort together, I'm just like, okay, we can do this. Like if someone's willing to listen, if I'm willing to listen where they're coming from, if they're willing to listen where I'm coming from, then like we can keep hosting these conversations, you know?
Wow. Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you for the question, Hadara. Brian, what's your question?
Hi, Dom. It's such an honor to meet you. My question has to go with, I follow you on Instagram as well. And I saw something you posted a few days ago, and it was talking about not every opportunity is a good opportunity. And I know for you being an individual who's really kind of by osmosis grown during this year of 2020, 2021, I still think we're in 2020, don't tell anyone.
No, I'm the same way. Yeah.
You've really grown in everything. I want to know, how has it been for you setting up those boundaries, not just in conversation and in giving advice and in kind of coaching people along this new line of thought, but how has it been for you almost as a professional in the scene, saying no to things, saying yes to things, similar to how you said no to accepting people's Venmos? Because I know plenty of people who was getting $25 for giving that advice. I won't comment on whether they, need that $25, but like,
Yeah.
so how did that, growing through that and maybe saying no to those opportunities, how has that affected your platform now and you as an individual?
Yeah. And Jessica, I'm sure you can speak to this as well, because you're just the queen of branding and like helping people expand and get vision. And one of the things early on, this is once again like a wild thought, but stick with me, we'll write it out. But I was like, who do I want? Like when people think of my name, who do they also associate me with? Like, do they think of me as like a low tier, like low hanging fruit, available, accessible like person? Or like, do they think of me as someone in high regard, someone like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just kind of went to that mindset and I was like, okay, so what opportunities do I need to say no to? And what opportunities do I need to say yes to get to like the end goal? And that came with a lot of learning as well, because there were definitely some opportunities. And I honestly actually just had to learn this lesson recently. But for example, I won't use names, but there was a brand who hit me up for a campaign and it was like great. I was like, this is great money. This is awesome. This is also like gets my foot in the door with all this other stuff. And I was like, I said yes. I said yes to them. This is real as it gets, as real as it gets, like being in this space. And then I think it was literally 3 days later, a better competitor came to me. And I wasn't even stoked on the campaign I was doing. I was just happy to like get a foot in the door. A better competitor came to me with double what the other competitor had initially offered. And like, essentially it was just like, I will buy you out of the contract. can you terminate, like all this stuff. And luckily I was in a place where like I hadn't posted, I hadn't done anything. So I was able to terminate with the other people and like work with this brand. And had I just held out a little bit longer, not jumped to the opportunity, I probably wouldn't have had like that awkwardness of being like, sorry guys, I have to leave. You know what I'm saying? And it was a really easy, soft lesson to learn where there wasn't a lot of collateral damage. And I was just talking to my manager and she was like, okay, like this was a great learning lesson, like whatever, da da da. And for me, I was just like, only say yes to the things that I'm like 100% live, breathe, and die. Like, this is what I want to do. And I think like setting up that principle and like holding yourself to that integrity is everything. It's everything. And one of the boundaries, like so hard for me because I'm a people pleaser, but I had to learn.
That's really good. I freaking relate to that so much. I mean, it's called the burden of opportunity, right?
Yep.
You have so much coming your way, and the bigger your platform grows, the brighter your star shines, the more people want a piece of it. And it's a good thing, right? Like it's what we work so hard to create. And then all of a sudden you have just so many demands and options, and you are so busy trying to do your work that you don't always have the time to really slow down, get in tune. Is this really a full body yes? Right. And Brian works with me. And so he sees the onslaught of just stuff coming at me, and thank God for him and my team, but like you kind of need, you need some help to sort of crystallize and see like, how do I actually be selective and strategic versus opportunistic?
Yeah. 100%. And also like realizing that like I need help. Like for the longest time, this is like this is just the whole thing. But I also was just like, I didn't see myself as a person who I was like, oh, I don't need a manager. I'm just Dom. Like, I don't need this. Oh, like I'm just average, whatever, And that was just that mindset of like, this all happened essentially overnight. So I'm still learning, like, dang, I have a platform now. Like things have to be different in order for me to grow. But it was like, after that opportunity, I was like, no, like I need to sign with someone, or like, I need to get a manager. And I did, and it's worked out great. And she was like, I'm happy you learned, and I'm happy we were able to like take this step. But yes, it was one of those things where I was like, I need help.
Yes. Great question, Brian. That it illuminates me too. I think we had Alexa wanted to ask a question. Where is Alexa?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Hi, Dom. Thank you so much for this tonight. This has been so wonderful. I have a little bit of a different question. So I admire and absolutely adore your platform in its entirety, but I'm a creative myself. And I truly adore your visual aesthetic, and you're talented. You're so talented. There's a clear depth to your art though, too. Like it's clearly not just like quote graphics for quote graphics sake. Like they're telling a story. And you shared how people and interactions and moments really inspire you, which I think is so beautiful. But can you speak to like aesthetically, like as an artist, as a creator, what inspires you, and how you translate that into what we see on your platform and how it furthers your message?
Yes. So I keep sharing all these stories, you guys. I swear they're going to end soon. But this was a lesson I had to I'm a learner, you guys. Some people learn from others. I learned from my own mistakes. So luckily this all didn't happen on the big scene, but just when I was still in college. But when I was in college, like I was saying earlier, I was making a ton of quote graphics for my internship. But before I had ever even made a graphic, I was just like, I'm going to help with social media. So one day our graphic designer was out of town, and they're like, hey, we need a graphic for this event that we're throwing this Sunday. And I had never, ever made a graphic in my whole entire life. But here I was having to make a graphic. Horrible. I know. And so this is really, stick with me, guys. So I'm making this graphic. And I'm like, I have no idea if it's good or bad, but I'm just like, YOLO, send it. My college director calls me and is like, hey, was that like serious? Like, were you like submitting that to be used? Like, he thought it was a joke. Like, he thought I made that graphic as a joke. Big failure.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so embarrassing, horrible. And big shot to my ego. So fast forward 3 months later, this other company had made the same graphic, and it got like a ton of engagement, all this stuff. And he laughed because he was like, oh my gosh, like, look, this is essentially your graphic, like the same exact thing, just like changed a few, like the picture. The only thing the difference is like the picture, but like the layout, the spacing, all of that. And so the conclusion is, if you believe in your heart that it's good, it's good. And there's so many different people that are gonna be like, there's this and there's this and there's this, but like it all starts with like believing in your art. And then from there you can get into, okay, well, what's my style? I'm a very simple person. I don't like do a lot of things. I might throw a texture on a graphic, but for the most part, like a lot of it is like words and like things I want to stick out, but none of it is too, I guess, savvy. And my style is not too savvy, but that is definitely something when it like comes to aesthetic and like true art and like who you are. If you think it's good, it's good. And a lesson I had to learn. And my ego, to this day, I still get insecure sometimes because I'm like, what if they don't like it? But then I remember that story and it like pulls me forward.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That one made my heart sing as a creative, as an artist.
Yes.
Yes. I love that story. I think it's just such a example of just authenticity.
Yeah. And ego death too. I had to die to my ego so many times because I was fearful, like, what if people aren't receptive to my art, or like, what if people don't like it? But it's crazy what happens like in your book, which is so special and so real. And honestly, I credit every single ounce of success or anything good that's happened for my platform come from literally being myself. Even being like, I'm having a mental breakdown right now, all of that has 100% flipped the script on everything that I do on my platform and my audience too, and like how they believe in me and like perceive me.
And look at the result of that. Look at the fruit of that labor. All of this growth and all of this recognition, and forget that, all of this impact, the differences that you're making in people's lives, including mine, including the people who are here and other people who are going to listen to this podcast. I'm just so honored to be with you tonight.
Yes.
And, honestly, Dom, you are so magical. And I know that this conversation was so powerful for the people who were on it. What a blessing. And I just really want to thank you for your time tonight and your wisdom. It's really good.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you guys, everyone who came to this event. I'm so excited for you and this book and all the people that it helps, because if I had this book this summer, I'm sure I would have a lot less pain and mental fatigue that I went through, 100%, no doubt.
But know that you're not alone, and what you did and what you are doing matters. And so I thank you, for your service. And with every step you take, I know I can see you learning, growing, and we all are, but you're onto big things, and I cannot wait to see where you go. And I'm going to be like, yep, I talked to her one time. I swear, you're the real thing, the real deal. Thank you for being with me tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored. Thank you.
The truth. And thank you to Katy Budget Books for having us. Thank you all for being a part of this tour. supporting local bookstores is so essential. And we're really grateful for the partnership, and we're grateful for all of your time. So have a beautiful night. Go to sleep knowing that you were graced with some real authenticity tonight. I certainly will. And thank you all for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.